The Willow Wren. In former days every sound still had its meaning and application. When the smith's hammer resounded, it cried, "Strike away, strike away." When the carpenter's plane grated, it said, "Here goes, here goes." If a mill wheel began to clack, it said, "Help, Lord God, help, Lord God, help." And if the miller was a cheat and happened to leave the mill, it spoke High German and first asked slowly, "Who is there? Who is there?" and answered quickly, "The miller, the miller," and at last, quite in a hurry, he steals bravely, 3 pecks in a bushel." At this time, the birds also had their own language, which everyone understood. Now it only sounds like chirping, screeching, whistling, some like music without words. It came into the birds' mind, however, they would no longer be without a ruler and would choose one of themselves to be their king. One alone amongst them, the green plover, was opposed to this. He had lived free and would die free, and anxiously flying hither and thither, cried, "Where shall I go? Where shall I go?" He retired to a solitary and unfrequented marsh, and showed himself no more among his fellows. The birds now wished to discuss their matter. On a fine May morning they all gathered together from the woods and fields. Eagles and chaffinches, owls and crows, larks and sparrows, how can I name them all? Even the cuckoo came, and his clerk, the hoopoe, who was so called because he always heard a few days before him, and a very small bird, which as yet had no name, mingled with the band. The hen, which by some accident had heard nothing of the whole matter, was astonished at the great assemblage. What is going to be done?" she cackled. But the cock calmed his beloved hen, and said only rich people, and told her what they had on hand. It was decided, however, that the one who could fly the highest would be king. A tree frog, which was sitting among the bushes, when he heard that, cried a warning, "No, no, 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 no," because he thought many tears would be shed because of this, but the crow said, "Caw, caw," and all that would pass off peaceably. It was now determined on this fine morning they should at once begin to ascend, so that hereafter no one should be able to say, "I could have flown much higher, but the evening came on, and I could do no more." On a given signal, therefore, the whole troop rose up in the air. The dust ascended from the land, and there was a tremendous fluttering and whirring and beating of wings, and it looked as if a black cloud was rising. The little birds were, however, soon left behind. They could go no farther and fell back to the ground. The larger birds held out longer, but none could equal the eagle, who mounted so high he could have picked the eyes from the sun. And when he saw the others could not get up to him, he thought, "Why shouldst thou fly still higher? Thou art king," and he began to let himself down again. The birds beneath him at once cried to him, "Thou must be our king! No one has flown so high!" "Except me!" cried the little fellow without a name, who had crept into the breast feathers of the eagle, and as he was not at all tired, he rose up and mounted so high he reached heaven itself. When, however, he had gone as far as this, he folded his wings together and called down with clear and penetrating voice, "I am king! I am king!" "You the king?" cried the birds angrily. "You have stolen it, by trick and by cunning." And they made another condition. He should be king who would go down lowest in the ground. How the goose did flap about with its broad breast where it was once more on the land. How quickly the cock scratched a hole. The duck came off worst of all, for she leapt into a ditch and sprained her legs and waddled away to a neighbouring pond, crying, "Cheating, cheating." The little bird without a name, however, sought out a mouse hole, slipped down into it, and cried out of it with a small voice, "I am king! I am king!" "You are king!" cried the bird still more angrily. "Do you think your cunning shall prevail?" They determined to keep him a prisoner in the hole and starve him out. The owl was placed as sentinel in front of it, and was not to let the rascal out if she had any value for her life. When evening came, all the birds were feeling very tired after exerting their wings so much, and went to bed with their wives and children. The owl alone remained standing by the great mouse hole, gazing steadfastly into it with her great eyes. In the meantime she too had grown tired, and thought to herself, "You might certainly shut one eye, you will still watch with the other, the little miscreant shall not come out of his hole." So she shut one eye, and with the other looked straight at the mouse hole. The little fellow put his head out and peeped, and wanted to slip away, but the owl came forward immediately, and he drew his head back. Then the owl opened the one eye again and shut the other, intending to shut them in turn all throughout the night. But when she next shut the one eye, she forgot to open the other, and as soon as both her eyes were shut, she fell asleep. The little fellow soon observed it, and slipped away. From that day forth, the owl has never dared show herself by daylight, for if she does, the other birds chase her and pluck out her feathers. She flies only by night, and hates and pursues mice because they make such ugly little holes. The little bird, too, is unwilling to let himself be seen, for he is afraid it will cost him his life if he is caught. He steals about in the hedges, and when he is quite safe, he sometimes cries, "I am king!" and for this reason the other birds call him in mockery King of the Hedges. No one, however, was so happy as the lark at not having to obey the little king. As soon as sun appears, she ascends high in the air and cries, "How beautiful it is! Beautiful it is! Beautiful, 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 beautiful it is!" The Willow Wren and the Bear. Once in summertime the bear and wolf were talking in the forest, and the bear heard a bird singing so beautifully that he said, "Brother Wolf, what bird is it that sings so well?" "That is the king of birds," said the wolf, "before whom we must bow down." It was, however, in reality, the willow wren. "If that is the case," said the bear, "I should very much like to see his royal palace. Come, take me thither." "That is not done quite as you seem to think," said the wolf. "You must wait till the queen comes." Soon afterwards the queen arrived with some food in her beak, and the lord king came too, and they began to feed their babies. The bear would have liked to go at once, but the wolf held him back by the sleeve and said, "You must wait until the lord and lady queen have gone away again." So they observed the hole in which was the nest and trotted away. The bear, however, could not rest until he had seen the royal palace, and when a short time had passed, again went to it. The king and queen had just flown out, so he peeped in and saw 5 or 6 young ones lying in it. "Is that the royal palace?" cried the bear. "It is a wretched palace, and you are not king's children, you are disreputable children." When the young wrens heard that, they were frightfully angry, and screamed, "We are not! Our parents are honest people! Bear, you will pay for that!" The bear and wolf grew uneasy and turned and went into their holes. The young willow wrens, however, continued to cry and scream. When their parents again brought food, they said, "We will not touch so much as one fly's leg. No, not if we are dying of hunger, until you have settled whether we are respectable children or not. The bear has been here and been insulting us." And the old king said, "Be easy, he shall be punished." And he at once flew with the queen to the bear's cave and called in, "Old growler, why hast thou insulted my children? You shall suffer for it. We will punish you by a bloody war." Thus war was announced to the bear, and all 4-footed animals were summoned to take part in it: oxen, asses, cows, deer, and every other animal the earth contained. And the willow wren summoned everything that flew in the air. Not only birds large and small, but midges and hornets, bees and flies had to come. And when time came for the war to begin, the willow wren sent out spies to discover who was the enemy's commander-in-chief. The gnat, who was the most crafty, flew into the forest where the enemy was assembled, and hid herself beneath the leaf of a tree where the watchword was to be given. There stood the bear, and he called the fox before him and said, "Fox, thou art the most cunning of all animals, and shall be general and lead us." "Good," said the fox, "but what signal shall we agree upon?" No one knew what, so the fox said, "I have a fine long bushy tail which almost looks like a plume of red feathers. When I lift my tail quite high, all is going well and you must charge, but if I let it hang down, run as fast as you can." When the gnat heard that, she flew away again and revealed everything with greatest minuteness to the willow wren. When day broke and the battle was to begin, all 4-footed animals came running up with such a noise the earth trembled. The willow wren also came flying through the air with his army, with such a humming and whirring and swarming that everyone was uneasy and afraid, and on both sides they advanced against one another. But the willow wren sent down the hornet with orders to get beneath the fox's tail and sting with all his might. When the fox felt the first sting, he started, so he drew up one leg with the pain and bore it, but still kept his tail high in the air. The second sting he was forced to put it down for a moment, and at the third he could hold out no longer and screamed and put his tail between his legs. When the animals saw that, they thought all was lost and began to fly, each to his hole, for the birds had won the battle. Then the king and queen flew home to their children and cried, "Children, rejoice, eat and drink to your heart's content. We have won the battle." But the young wrens said, "We will not eat yet. The bear must come to the nest and beg for our pardon and say we are honorable children before we will do so." And the willow wren flew to the bear's hole and said, "Growler, thou art to come to the nest of my children and beg their pardon, or else every rib of your body shall be broken." So the bear crept thither in the greatest fear and begged their pardon. And now at last the young wrens were satisfied and sat down together and ate and drank and made merry till quite late into the night. The end.